had a woman come into the store one time with a little Chihuahua. We were talking about the dog, and she was telling me how much she loved the dog, and which was great. But then she told me that she wanted to be able to take her dog wherever she went. And if anybody complained, she would just say, "Oh, he's a seeing eye dog. How can they prove he's not?"
I could be a mess, stressed in yesterday. He don't care less. He sees me anyway. Yeah, he sees me anyway. My dog thinks I'm great. He thinks I'm number one. He never hates, even when I'm done.
Welcome to Dog Leads. I'm your host, Steve Bishop. I'm a certified dog trainer and have been working with dogs professionally for almost 20 years. I'm a member of the Pet Professional Guild, a Family Paws parent educator, canine good citizen trainer and evaluator, and I have a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology with a minor in Sociology. My website is available at bishopsgatetraining.my.canva.site. If you have any questions or would like to suggest a topic, you can contact me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com.
This episode is brought to you by Dogs and Storks, presented by Steve Bishop. The presentation will be on February 7th. Advanced registration is required. The link is in the description. If you are pregnant or planning to become pregnant, this program sets the groundwork for success through education before baby arrives. The goal of Dogs and Storks is to help expecting families learn how to set their dog and baby up for success through education and preparation.
So I wanted to look at the differences between your service dogs, your therapy dogs, and your emotional support animals. A lot of the reason for this, like this woman in the intro, people don't realize how much of a problem they cause for other people that actually need their dogs with them just to get through everyday life or to navigate everyday situations. A service dog is trained to perform a specific task or to work with people with disabilities. So disability can be physical, sensory, psychiatric, intellectual, or other mental disabilities. The work of a service dog must be directly related to the handler's need. So seeing eye dog, for example, which helps people navigate out in the world. Hearing dogs, which they will notify the person if, I don't know, the phone's ringing or there's a knock at the door, someone's speaking to them, something like that. The psychiatric dogs, so for example, I recently heard a story about someone with PTSD, and their dog was trained to move the person out of a crowd when they started having an episode. And then a lot of people have heard about the seizure detection dogs. Next I have on my list is therapy dog. These are dogs that are a team with their person. They volunteer in clinical settings, hospitals, orphanages. These dogs provide comfort, affection, and dare I say love. I'm sure everybody's heard of the research that dogs can have a very calming effect on people. That is their sole job. And then we have emotional support animals, and this is the one that I have the biggest problem with. Emotional support animals are considered companion animals that ease a person's anxiety, depression, phobias, loneliness. And in order to become an emotional support animal, you need a prescription basically from a mental health professional. But if you go online, you can find all kinds of websites where they say, fill out this form and we'll certify your dog as an emotional support animal. The problem is a lot of these dogs don't have any training. They don't handle being out in public well, and the people, I've seen a lot of them, and granted these are your worst case scenarios, but a lot of these people will raise a fuss if their dog isn't allowed into a public space. In another worst case scenario, there was a woman that went to the training facility where I teach my group classes, and these dogs that she and the rest of her family had as emotional support animals were just to boost her ego. I would look at these dogs and they were the most despondent, shut down dogs I have ever seen. They were all about her inflating her ego. She would teach classes and she would have the dog sit on a pedestal during the whole class, not moving, and if the dog did move, she would reprimand that dog. And so, I mean, her dog looked like a vulture, just the way its head was hanging down. It was the most pathetic thing I have ever seen. So I'm not trying to say that people do not need emotional support animals, and if you do, that should be an option that's available to you. But if you don't need one and you just want to have your dog with you, you're ruining it for people that do have service dogs, do need their dogs with them to get through day-to-day life. I want to go through each one of these just a little bit more in depth. Your service dog, it's legally allowed to accompany the handler anywhere they go. This is mandated by the ADA. Must be allowed to live with the owner even when there's a no pets policy, can fly on planes in the cabin with the handler. They must be able to tolerate environments. They have a lot of training behind them so they can handle different circumstances and react or not react appropriately depending on what the situation requires. And they are specifically trained to help the handler with specific tasks. The handler cannot perform themselves due to specific disabilities. So again, the PTSD, it's an invisible disability, but the story that I heard, the person was saying he was just so overwhelmed by this crowd. I think they were in a subway station, if I remember correctly, but he was so overwhelmed by the crowd, he couldn't do anything. And so the dog had to perform that task of basically body blocking the person into a safe area away from the crowd. They moved over behind a pillar against the wall where the crowd wasn't coming through. These are the types of things that we don't think about that the dogs may actually do. Therapy dogs, they're not allowed anywhere. You have to get permission to bring the dogs in, particularly like a hospital where cleanliness is very high priority. Similar to service dogs, your therapy dog should be able to tolerate novel environments. So if they're in a patient ward and the person doesn't have really good control of their movements, the dog needs to be able to tolerate somebody maybe petting a little bit too hard, being, they have a tick or any of those novel situations that may come with some type of medical or physical ailment. The dog's got to be able to handle those situations. And they're trained to comfort many people. They're not specific to one person, although they do have one handler usually. And they have to wear special identification. So like the service dogs, they don't have to have any special identification. You cannot ask to see any certification, but you can ask, and correct me if I'm not phrasing this exactly right, you can ask the person, what does the dog do for you? But you cannot say, like something, for example, what is your disability that the dog helps you with? Emotional support dogs, if you have that prescription, they do have to be allowed to live with you even where there's a no pets policy. But again, you got your prescription online, the dog has no training and it's in the apartment barking 24/7, that's going to ruin it for everybody else. Emotional support dogs may not be allowed into every public space. So, planes, grocery stores, it's kind of left up to the business owner. And then again, their primary function is to provide emotional support only for the handlers, not a large group of people like your therapy dogs. If you do need help from a dog, get the right type of support animal. Make sure they have training no matter what kind of a dog it is, so that you're not ruining it for the people that do actually need the help from their dog. Thank you for joining me, and as always, if you have any questions or any topics you'd like to hear me talk about, you can leave a comment or you can email me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com.